the Prime Minister from the government team to deliver their speech. You may start whenever you're ready. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't state the motion before, right? Okay, the motion of the debate today is this House regrets television shows and films that portray the police in a positive light. So, whenever you're ready, Prime Minister from government team, you may start.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Good evening. I would like to bid to the members of the hall. As Prime Minister today, the motion that we are be talking today is this House regrets television shows and films that portray the police in a positive light. So, as Prime Minister, we would like to propose this motion. So, in my speech, I will be doing the characterization, and I also tailor the debate to what it should be and introduce an argument from our side to further strengthen our case. So first, I will start with the characterization. What is positive light? So positive light is we depict the police in a positive or favorable way to the society. And next, I will start with the status quo. So in today's day and age, especially in Hollywood, for a century, police are depicted as somewhat of a justice system that has been very effective, and we also have depict them in a way that that it is hard for us to imagine that they can do nothing wrong. And that is why today the government, as government, we say that it is regrettable that we portray police in a good light in shows where in reality, in the current status quo, which is that bribery and brutality runs rampant in police force. For example, as you can see in America, police brutality is one of the major political debates where police are having racial biases, and the recent case of George Floyd is one of the case that we can point out and prove that police brutality does exist in today's status quo. So now I would be moving on to my mechanism. So we are not denying that police is in whole is the best. What we're trying to push is, or no, what we're trying to push is that the world is not black and white, and that there is a bad side and there's a good side of police. But because of these TV shows, and it portrays an over glorification of the justice system that police brings into the world. So our burden, what are we pushing for today is what is our burden of push is that why should we depict police in television to be realistic, and what are the harms to the audience if we portray police in a positive light? So my argument is why should we depict police in television to be realistic? This is the reason is because portraying police in a positive light would result in addiction to stories that portray police that are more effective than they actually are, and that crime is not is more prevalent than it actually is, and the police use of force is constantly justified. So in police shows where police brutality is used to apprehend criminals, we portray it to be justifiable just because it is portrayed in TV shows. And this, we could link it back to police brutality in America. We think that that by portraying police in a good light in TV shows, and this will negatively impact the perspective of American citizen, who thinks that it's justifiable for police to randomly shoot black men who are crossing the streets, just because of their racial biasness. So there is no questions that it should be. There's no question that this is one of the reason why we should depict police in television to be realistic, is because that it gives a sense of it gives it gives it gives um, it gives a false sense of security to the public, because they would trust in the police and they would think that there is no reason to question the actions of the police behind of this, even though in later investigation we will later find out. Yes.
So you're saying that this is the society will have this sense of security, but how are they going to have this sense of security when we are showing the bad side of the police?
I said a false sense of security. Is that good? Okay. Okay. So yeah. So by giving these police shows are giving a false sense of security to the citizen, because then they would believe that whatever the police does is extremely justifiable, even though in later investigation we will later find out that the person are innocent, and then they will have killed an innocent man, which would then lead to a murder case. And that is why we should we that's why we should support today's motion, which is this house would regret television shows and films that portray police in a positive light. Okay, now I will move on to the worst and best case scenario. So on the worst case scenario on our side is that there would be there would be an increase of mistrust in police in the justice system because of police brutality when it is depicted realistically in police show. But however, even if is depicted realistically, at least the citizen will know how to act if they were to be faced by if they were to be faced by police brutality in reality, and then maybe they wouldn't be end up dead. So on however, on government's worst case scenario is that we would create this world where it is sunshine and rainbows, and that the police are the good force and they can play the action hero in every single scene, when that is actually not the reality of it. Um, so that is why I have never been prouder to propose. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful speech. Moving on, I would like to call upon the Leader of Opposition. You may start your speech whenever you are ready.
Thank you, Chair. I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. First and foremost, some rebuttals to what has been presented by the Prime Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, the Prime Minister stated that in the reality, the police institution has bribery and brutality. But ladies and gentlemen, we must understand that police brutality, they said that police brutality happens a lot. But ladies and gentlemen, the opposition in today's debate does agree that police brutality happen, but we are to state that that is only the minority of the police, the minority of the enforcement officers who are actually committing or doing this police brutality or other misconduct in the police force. We believe that it is not fair at all if you have to put the same label to all the police just because one police misconducted in an enforcement mission, ladies and gentlemen. So I will give some analysis. Why is it not fair to actually label the whole police system as a police system that is bad, that we should not trust for, ladies and gentlemen? It is not fair because not all police are the same, because we do agree that some police do have does police brutality and does do any misconduct, but not all police are the same, and they deserve the clarification of doing their duty, ladies and gentlemen. It is not fair that the government stands and just make all citizens see the police as a person who is bad, not doing their job properly. We believe that is totally not fair. So why is it bad if it is not fair? So first, police who are not bad, who are doing their duty properly, are the one that is being discriminated in the society. That is very bad. Imagine when a police just doing their duty, just patrolling around, and the citizens would view the police in disgust. This is because of all the um, because the government regret putting a positive light on this police, and we from the opposition side believe that the police officers does deserve, completely justified to deserve this positive light in television shows and films, ladies and gentlemen. So ladies and gentlemen, before I move on, we should look at the function of the police in the first place. The function of the police is to help the citizens to obtain their trust of the citizens and have a responsible to take care of the citizens. And moving on to the burden of proof, the opposition today shall prove to all of you that under positive light, it is way better for the society and the police institution. And the government must prove that by having positive light, it causes harm, which the opposition today totally disagrees with. The Ladies and gentlemen, the first speaker of the government side also talk about false sense of security. We say that false sense of security only happen in the government world. Why? Because they are making the society, the citizen think that police are bad. But meanwhile, in our world, we are saying that police are good and they are there to help you. So we are actually giving a solid sense of security, not a false sense of security. What they are doing by picturing that the police are bad, the police in these television shows, they regret to show that the police are actually good. They are the one who are creating the false sense of security. Ladies and gentlemen, we look at the status quo. In today's status quo, people are already not trusting the police and they are already afraid to seek help. We believe that this status quo is very, very bad. So why is it bad? First, because they have an opinion that police are strict. And this is very wrong. Because when we have television shows and films that portray the police in a positive light, we actually allow the citizens to look at the police in a positive way, that they are actually kind and there and funny and there to actually help people. So we want the citizens to view the police as human beings too, not what the government is trying to show, that they are just horrible individuals, ladies and gentlemen. Why is it bad that the status quo stand? Because when they do not trust the police, bad things shall occur. For example, they will take matters to their own hands and they will not refer to the police when they have problems. This will cause many more problems, such as you opt to handle things your own way by causing injury to someone instead of going to the police to report the crime made. Ladies and gentlemen, it is also bad because people will accuse police when they are actually trying to help people. When the police are trying to help you, you think that the police is trying to hurt you, and this is very bad. And this is what happens when this motion is passed. When you regret that to show police in a positive light, you create fear in the citizens, ladies and gentlemen. It is very important that we trust the police because they are the one we need in times of hardship. They are the one that we need to seek. And ladies and gentlemen, why is it important that we instill trust that these television shows and films show that police are good? Is because we want to instill great cooperation between police and people. When great cooperation between police and people can be established, then problems are easy to be solved, ladies and gentlemen. Moving on to my argument is that the bad effects to the community when the police are put in under a negative light in the television shows and films, ladies and gentlemen. When they are put under a negative light, this will bring lots of bad effects to the community. 3 levels of analysis. First, why is it true that it is bad for the community? Because people would start to distrust the police system and people will be less dependent on the police. This is very bad because, second layer of analysis, this is very bad because police are the one who should protect us. Police are the one who should cater to us in the times of need. And in order for the police to help us, we need to trust them, ladies and gentlemen. Trust is the most important thing in every single thing, ladies and gentlemen. Third level of analysis, why is it important that we put the police under positive light? It's because, ladies and gentlemen, as I stated again and again, we need to trust them in order to seek help from them, in order to solve a problem that is occurring in the society. Ladies and gentlemen, last but not least, I would like to add that people who make police as their role models, for example, children who are looking forward towards this police, trying to become a police in the future, would have bad effects when they look at the police being depicted as someone who is bad and someone who is irresponsible, ladies and gentlemen. Because of all these reasons, we are proud to oppose. Thank you very much.
Thank you to the Leader of Opposition for your speech. Now moving along, I call upon the Deputy Prime Minister from the government team. You may deliver your speech whenever you are ready.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. So I think what the side of government, what side of opposition here has misunderstood in today's debate they have not been listening to what we've been trying to say. We've never said that we paint the police in a dark light only. We said that we regret the motion. We regret the depiction of police in a good light because we prefer that we depict them in a more realistic light where we show the good side and also the bad side of the police. Okay, and with that clarification out of the way, I would like to bid a very good evening to everyone, to all the members of the hall. Today, as the Deputy Prime Minister, I will be doing two main things in my speech today. Firstly, I will be giving a few rebuttals from what the Leader of Opposition has said. And secondly, I will also be giving out one argument under our side. Okay. First things first is the rebuttals. Okay. So, what has the Leader of Opposition come up to you and said? Okay, they said that it shows that they have misunderstood whatever the case that we have set up is because they keep on insisting that we have to prove, we have to justify why depicting in a bad light only is such a good thing. No, we never said that we will depict only in a bad light. We will use a mixture of both. We will depict. We regret the status quo of it being depicted in a good light only. We think that it should be depicted in both a good and a bad light.
POI?
A more realistic light in that sense. Okay. Yes, go ahead, PI.
I did not think that the Prime Minister bring up this classification. So I'm so sorry, but you cannot say that I did not say anything because the Prime Minister did not say anything about that. Thank you.
Okay, I don't think that was a very needed POI, but whatever. Moving on. Okay, so another concept that they have brought up in the Prime Minister's speech here, in the Leader of Opposition speech here, they brought up, they told us that the role of police is to gain trust, is to gain trust of the people and to cooperate with the people. We think that this is not what the role of the police actually is, okay? We think that the role of the police is actually to maintain public order. But when we want to maintain public order, they should be they should not side with anyone. They should not have any affiliations, so that they can conduct whatever they need to in a very fair and unbiased way. So we think that maintaining public order is actually the true goal of the police, not to gain the trust of citizens and to become friends with them. We don't think this is the case. They have been made to suppress crimes and all that. Hence why we think that they actually are used for maintaining public order. Next thing. Next thing they said, okay, leader of opposition brought up something very interesting here. They said that, okay, when we depict in a very bad, when we try to portray the realistic side of the police, we will like discourage the children or something. We think that we are actually doing, they talked about children at the very end of their speech. We think that it is actually a very good thing that we show these children, we show what actually happens in the backside. Even though they are the minority, we should actually still try to depict them, because when you try, what happens when you actually ignore this minority? You ignore the police minority. You say it is unjustifiable. We think that when you completely ignore it, what will happen is that this ignorance will continue to spread. Will uh, People will 100% just trust the police. We think that they will not actually try to question what the police are actually doing. So we think that, and it also does not show what the true life of a police officer is. Does not show like how stressful a police officer life is, how much they have to take care of. We think that how much decisions, how many bad things actually happen in the background. When we over glorify, that's the problem with over glorification. We don't show the true image of this police to the children. It will lead up to these children actually having a different mindset, and being very, very completely confused as to why police are suddenly doing this. Okay. Okay. Now moving on to my argument. Okay. Which is, we should never fully trust someone. Okay, in this case, we should not 100% just trust what the police are doing. Okay, because if we 100% believe in the police, it will cause lots of harms. Okay, true. You have to follow the police, but we as citizens, we have the right to question what they're doing, whether they are doing what is right or wrong. So when we try to depict in a realistic light, it gives people more things to think about, to take into consideration when we look at what the police is doing. For example, let's take for example, if we see the police accepting money from someone to do something that is not the right thing, we think that, okay, when we show this, what we call bribery, when we show this bribery actually happen in the movies, we can show the public, we can show the people, okay, that bribery actually does happen in the police world. So whenever the situation comes where the citizens actually have to face with, when, for example, the police offers them a bribery or something like that, they can see that the police there are not doing the right thing. We think that this is very important, because when we have the mental capacity to actually question what happens, we will grow. We will actually be able to improve. We will actually be able to point out the flaws of the police, what they do wrong. Like, for example, the George Floyd incident. We think that when we show that police brutality actually happens, people can actually see what the police, even though minority, we still think that they actually do reflect part of the police. We think that when we set up a better realistic depiction, so that when people are in those situations, they face brutality. But in your case, when you say you depict them in a good light, they will never try to question. They will think that, oh, we deserve this punishment. No, we think that people should actually think and actually see for themselves, actually try to consider if what the police are doing is right. And in that case, I've said to you, we can point out their flaws, and we can actually try to improve the system slowly. And we think that in our worst case scenario, in our best case scenario, we will actually prove to the people, we actually show a very good example of how realistic police life is. But in our worst case scenario, at the very least, even if people do not trust in the police, we think that it is a good thing, because they can point out the flaws if there is a flaw in the police system. And with that, I've never been prouder to propose. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for your speech, Deputy Prime Minister of Opposition. I would like to call upon, Deputy Prime Minister of Government. I would like to call upon the Deputy Prime Minister of Opposition, You may begin your speech whenever you are ready. Beauty leader, sorry.
All right, thank you. I'll start soon. Okay, starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, in order to maintain public order, there needs to be trust within the institution. That trust is crucial, and without it, ladies and gentlemen, society, we stumble in failure. Before I move on to my claims, I would like to move on to some of the rebuttals said by the Deputy Prime Minister. First of all, we would like to clarify that the clarification for how they are saying that clarification of how that the TV shows are going to portray them not just in a bad manner, but in a realistic manner that has good and bad, came in late during the Deputy Prime Minister's speech. Therefore, we believe that it is unfair that they did that to us. Secondly, they said that police aren't supposed to be friendly. They're just supposed to maintain order. That's their duty. However, we greatly disagree because in order for us to live a safety life, there needs to be both. We need to have trust and we need to have order. But how do we get trust in the first place? We get it by having friendly cops that we are able to connect to talk to, and depend to when we need them. Without friendliness, there can be no trust. So you cannot say that maintaining order can happen without trust, which cannot happen without friendliness. Now, moving on to the point said by Deputy Prime Minister, he said that the citizens need to have the mental capacity to understand the realistic situations. Therefore, they depict realistic situations that regret showing cops in good light. However, we're not saying realistically speaking, in a TV show that portrays portrays cops in good light, there aren't just good cops in it. He brought up the example of how some cops commit bribery, and in seeing that, people become aware of the actual reality that bribery and corruption happens within the institution. However, in TV shows, in order for you to prove that something is good, you need to prove what is bad. That has to be comparative. In order to know what is light, you need to know darkness first. Therefore, we believe that TV shows that do portray cops in a good light will also portray cops that do commit bribery, that do corruption, and then we have the main hero or the protagonist of that TV show committing a better act that defeats that corruption. Ladies and gentlemen, my first claim is because we want to have more trusting citizens. So why is this true? Why does showing why is this the world that the government is trying to propose has distrust citizens? Because the reason why policemen get rough in the first place, one of the main reasons is because citizens do not cooperate with the officer because they assume them to be bad. This happens when you do not show them a good depiction of police officers in a good light, because they will start to have a stigma regarding it. Secondly, the reason why we need to have trusting citizens, why it's true, is because they're more likely to run away than stay still. In other words, do what is told by the policeman because of the distrust that they feel towards the policeman if we were to proceed with the motion. Why is this bad? Because when we don't have trusting citizens, it makes a poor environment or a poor community for not only children, but an entire family, students, adulthood to live in. It creates a corrupted, dirty, and slummish community. Secondly, lives will be lost due to mistrust and misunderstanding. And this is a huge waste on the government side, where citizens are wastefully throwing away their lives due to the distrust that they see because of TV shows. Thirdly, police have a harder time pinning down the crooks, because when the civilians see that policemen being shown in bad light, they will depend on crooks or anti-police organization, such as, let's say, the mob, for example, for protection instead of the institution that has already provided the safety net for them. Why is this so important? Because we want to create a safer society, and we want to avoid unnecessary violence from both sides. Secondly, we want a society that are able to rely on each other. Citizens, normal people, need policemen just as policemen need normal citizens. We need cooperation to happen, and therefore we need to be able to rely on each other. Thirdly, we want to ensure that the responsibilities of the policemen can be executed thoroughly and easily when we have trusting citizens. Now, my second claim is because we want policemen to have a higher sense of morality in their responsibility. Why do we say that this is true? Because when the policemen are shown good examples, let's say as trainees or as students who want to become policemen in the future, they will look at these TV shows that portray them in good light and try to replicate and imitate those good examples, which then gives them a high sense of morality and their responsibility. Secondly, they would definitely want to live up to the standards of their TV or film heroes. They watch a movie about good cops and they will start to think, wow, that's so cool, I want to be just like him. When they grow up, they will want to be just like him and do what those heroes and the protagonists in those films and TV shows do by imitating all the good acts that they do. Thirdly, by doing why we say it's true, because policemen become more empathetic to the people that need from them. This is because when you show policemen in good light in TV shows, they are actually being made aware of their responsibilities and how much people actually need them. So they will become more empathetic to the people that need them. Why is this good? Because we want to create a domino effect of responsible policemen, because policeman after policeman will begin to copy the good examples that are portrayed one by one. Secondly, we want to better the stereotypes of policemen outside of TV shows. Sure, we agree, there are bad cops and it creates a stereotype in the real world. However, we don't want to maintain that. We want to create and better that. We want to create a better situation that defeats that, that makes a better stereotypes for policemen outside of TV shows. And why is it good? Is because by watching these TV shows, policemen can actually correct racism by watching good examples. Because, like I said before, in order for you to know what is good, you need to know what is bad. So therefore, these policemen will know what exactly is racism, what counts as misconduct, what counts as corruption, and they will correct themselves or correct their seniors when seen. Why is this so important? Because we want to create better policemen that can actually ensure the safety in the community and better our institution, protect democracy, peace of state, and etc. Therefore, the opposition is proud to oppose. Thank you.
Thank you for your speech. Now I would like to call upon the government whip. You may begin your speech whenever you are ready. Are you present?
Sorry. Right. Good evening, and to all the members of the hall. Today I'll be doing two things in my speech today. So as the government whip, how I will present my speech is by first explaining the main issues and clashes that has been discussed throughout the debate. And then secondly, I would rebut each of these issues to properly shut down any arguments given by the opposition side, and also further strengthen and re-clarify everything that the government side has already explained. So without further ado, let's move on with the clashes and issues. So in my speech today, I have 5 clashes and also clarifications that I want to talk about. So let's first start off with number 1. Number 1, I want to clarify about what we meant by realistic depiction of police in TV shows. So I think the opposition side has been confused to what we actually meant, and they even said that we are making stuff up at the second speech, even though my first speaker already explained clearly what we mean by realistic depiction. And I quote from my first speaker: depict police and TV to be realistic, not and we didn't even said that we are trying to depict them as bad people or we want to depict them as good people at all. This is something that is very overlooked by the opposition side. So let me explain to you clearly more about this depiction. So what we are trying to basically discuss is that police are not black and white, and TV shows, most of TV shows that show these police forces, yes, they have bad things, but the good things that is explained in the that is showed in the TV show is glorifying the police force. And yes, showing something good to the police force is something that we do agree with, but over glorifying it to the point that it's unrealistic and something that will never happen in the real world is what we mean by not having a realistic depiction. Yes, realistic depiction, you need to be a little bit on the gray area, but we still do show the good side of police. Police forces obviously are not all of them are bad. Even the opposition said that not all police are the same, but that also further strengthens our case, because not all police are actually nice. Not all police are actually going to sacrifice his life for you. Obviously, there will be brutal police. Obviously, there will be harsh police, and obviously, there will be scary police outside there. And we cannot always assume that all the police there are going to be very good and very kind to the people, because this moves on to the second issue. But basically, that's what we mean by having a realistic depiction of these police forces. Now, my second issue that I want to talk about is the real function of the police force. So I think this is a versus battle between who actually explains the police force better, the government side or the opposition side. So let's look at what the opposition side said first, because they brought up what is the real function of the police force in the first place. They said that the police force is to gain trust and also to protect the people. Then my deputy prime minister stand up and said that no, it's not about to gain trust, it's about public order. But then suddenly the deputy leader said, oh, but in public order, you need to get trust. So obviously they actually don't know what is the main function of the police force, because they can somehow twist the point that we have told you and then make them into their own point. So let me just explain and clarify this. Firstly, police are supposed to maintain public order and protect citizens, like my deputy prime minister said, but we should never put trust in public order. Now, understand that public order is basically making sure that all the citizens obey the law. This is what public order is. It's not about, oh, if you trust me, then the public order will be something that is very smoothly flow through the society. But no, public order is basically gaining control of the citizens to make sure that they don't commit crime, to make sure that they follow the law that is implemented in the nation. And I don't think trust is something that you should put in the public order. And also talking about trust now, sir. Also talking about trust, we cannot really fully trust anyone for that matter, especially for strangers or people that we don't know. So yes, police are supposed to protect us. They're supposed to to ensure order for the public, but understand that we cannot fully trust them because they are human as well. They will prone to do mistakes. They are prone to do something that is not what a police should do. We cannot assume that all police are perfect, and therefore we cannot fully trust them. Putting a little trust in the police is okay, but the opposition side is really trying to say to us that we need to trust them with our lives. If they want to shoot us, we have to fully trust them because they know the right thing. If they want to kill us, then let them kill us, because that's the right thing to do, to fully trust the police. So I feel like this is something that shouldn't be happening in the real world, because the police itself, if we look back at the motion, this basically looking back at the status quo of the motion, basically people are actually dying from this police. Even though it's the minority, it's still a problem and we need to cater to the issue. So if we were to fully trust the people, then there will be more George Floyd issues coming up in the future. So the opposition side never responded to this, and they've been living in their own bubble and not even trying to reconsider what if the police are actually not as perfect as they thought to be. So moving on to the next all right, before I move on to the next issues, yes.
We've already addressed that about the George Floyd issue that this is a case of misconduct in the minorities and they do not reflect on the majority of the institution.
Okay, yes, thank you for that. I already explained it to you just now. Just because it's the minority doesn't mean that we have to ignore it. One of the reasons key to why it happened was because of the status quo of the problem that we stated in this motion. Therefore, we already told you and we already proven to you on our burden of proof why by proving that this motion can be proposed is that this sort of issues wouldn't happen again in the future, or at least minimize. Your side never actually tried to explain how to solve the problem, but instead you're just saying that it's something that is in the minority, therefore we don't need to care about it. I feel like this is something the opposition shouldn't do. So moving on to the next issue is about how the shows depict how the shows trying to encourage people to become better through the shows. So I'm going to talk about children and police forces. So if you were to depict something that is unrealistic, something that glorifies police, I don't think it's something that is good to be shown to the children. Obviously, the children needs to see the real picture here. They need to know what is actually a police. A police isn't someone who saves people and shoot people, the bad guys and everything. It shouldn't be something like that. The police is much more complicated than that. I think what children should do is, in fact, search for videos online about real police saving real people. For example, a person tried to commit suicide and the police tried to save him by giving him a hug. Something like that is much more better than trying to see something that is over glorified in TV shows, which is something that is unrealistic. And the police forces also won't really be actually encouraged to become better just because they watch the TV shows. Oh, look, that's my occupation. I should really become like that. It shouldn't be something like that. This is something that is a very big assumption. So police really needs to, okay, basically that summarizes up for my speech. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you for your speech. Moving on to the last speaker, the opposition whip may present their speech whenever they are ready.
Am I audible?
Yes.
I start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, in today's debate, since the third speaker can't really contest to the premise of our argument, he had to create a lot of wrong accusations in order to make their speech. But let's take a look at today's debate. So our side believe that which side should win today's debate is the side that gives give a solution that works best in the end of the day. And this is and later I will prove to you why our side should take today's debate home. So as the whip opposition, I would like to rebut a few issues that have been happening in today's debate. So firstly, in their word, they talk about the status quo. The government side talk about the status quo where it is hard to for the citizens to imagine that the police can do wrong when we just depict the police in the positive light. But ladies and gentlemen, this is very, very good, like what my speakers have stated. Because let's take a look at another perspective of the status quo. So nowadays, people distrust the institution of the police. And this will actually cause many, many problems because people will tend to handle things themselves. And thus, it will create more chaos in the world, in our country nowadays. And then they also talk about how when we just depict them in positive light, it will result in addiction to stories that is considered false. But ladies and gentlemen, is it wrong? Tell me, is it wrong to paint a false picture to fit the view of the people? Because in their word, in the government's word, the people are afraid of the police. The people won't trust the police because they know that, okay, police can do this and this is bad. So they're afraid of the police and hence they won't actually tell their problems to the police. While in our world, people actually trust this police. People know that this police will do good to them because of the view that they have been implemented with. So moving on, then they also focus on, they talk about how when we show police in both positive and negative light, it will for example, it will show that it is not justified for the police to shoot black men on the street, and it shows that people are ignorant. People are ignorant towards the bad thing that police are doing if we only show them in the positive light. But three response to this. So the first response is, let's talk about common sense, shall we? Now tell me, if you see a person shooting another person at the street, for example, or take bribery, how would you feel if you saw that picture? And who wouldn't have guessed that it is wrong, right? So this is my point. My point being is that it is a common sense. If you see people do bad things, you know that regardless of what their job is, regardless of who they are, you know that this is a bad thing to do in the first place. Second response, there is a lot. If they are going to talk about education, educating the public, there is a lot of education that we already give to the public about misconducts. And in fact, not just police do these misconducts. There are a lot of other people who do misconducts. So why focus on the police when the police is the institution that we should trust the most, because they are paid to they are basically paid to take care of our life. And third response, let's take a look at the vulnerability of the society. How they tend to take seriously things that they see, and how they will be the most affected party, and how much of the society's trust are we going to lose? Are we going to jeopardize just because we want to show like the true picture of what have been happening in this world today? Then they also talk about the false sense of security in our world, but our prime minister, our leader of opposition talk about how this will only happen in government's world because we are giving a solid sense of security. Because in our world, we instill trust in people. We know that the people will trust this police institution and tell the police what is happening, what the wrong things that have been happening in their life. And then moving on, the deputy prime minister, they talk about how they will not put police in the ballot. Or these are two responses. First, this actually came out late, and they clarified it very late. Was this should have been done by the prime minister? Second response, why even showing any bad side of the police at all? Because we know that when someone do a bad thing, when we know that someone is capable of doing a bad thing, the whole view of us to that people are going to change towards the bad side. Hence, the effect is that the people will start to distrust this institution, the whole police institution, because we are showing the bad side of them, even though it is in a small amount. We know that it is wrong at all. Then next thing, also the government side talk about how we still should try to depict even though the minority. But my speaker already talked about this, ladies and gentlemen. We talk about how it's very, very unfair to do this. Because think about the most population of the police who don't do misconduct, who are doing a very good job in their work. And what about them? So you don't want to think about their feelings. So what about the trust of the people that they used to have? So when they saw this kind of depiction in the televisions that show that they are doing bad things, so what will happen to the people? What will happen to the trust that these people used to have to them? So it will all go into the drain, ladies and gentlemen. And hence, that is why we believe that this is very unfair. Even though they're just the minority even though they're just the minority, we're going to depict the bad things that they do in the televisions, because most of the police institutions, we cannot put them in the same light as this minority. And then they also, next they talk about how the citizens can see the police are not doing the right thing if we depict them in a fair situation where they are depicted in positive and negative light. And that is why I talk about common sense, because the citizens already know that these things that they are doing is wrong, regardless of what they are working as. Even though they, for example, if they are doctor, even though they work as things other than police, if they do this misconduct, doesn't mean that if they do that misconduct, people know that what they are doing is wrong. So we don't even need to depict them in this television. So then they talk about how our best case scenario is we create a world of sunshine and rainbows where it is not the reality. But ladies and gentlemen, tell me what is wrong with this? Because if we can instill trust in the society, if we can make them believe the police more, and it will if we can instill trust in the society, so what is wrong with painting a false picture of the world just because we want them we want the world to be more peaceful in the end of the day? And then they also talk about how the police should not be trusted fully. But ladies and gentlemen, I prove to you today that this goes hand in hand, because when we first instill trust of the society to the police, then then we could fix the police behavior. For example, the minority who do the misconducts, and it actually goes but it is not actually included into this debate because it doesn't take place into this debate. So that is why from me, proud to oppose. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your speech. Now the opposition team may give their reply speech.
Okay, thank you very much. I will start my reply speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, some few final remarks coming from the opposition side. Ladies and gentlemen, the government side that police brutality still happen, and this is the entire case made by the Prime Minister. But because we from the opposition side already agree that the police misconduct happens in the minority, their entire case for the Prime Minister falls down. And we say that although it happens, showing to the people that the police are bad, deceiving that by showing in the television and films that they are bad and they cannot be forgiven, it will cause a worse problem to happen, ladies and gentlemen. And as we stated before, it is not fair to blame the entire police institution just because a minority of misconducts that happen. Ladies and gentlemen, the second speaker and the third speaker repeated the same point of that the role of the police is to maintain public order, and to maintain public order, they do not need trust. We believe that this is very, very wrong because a part of maintaining public order is actually when a person reporting a crime. And in order for a person to report a crime to the police, they must trust the police to do something in the first place. And it concludes that without trust, the police cannot maintain public order. Ladies and gentlemen, their case about trust falls. Ladies and gentlemen, they also state that there's a lot of harms when people trust the police, but they never actually stated any of these harms. But we already stated that the benefits when you actually trust the police. We say that you are easy to report crimes. We say that you will not take matters into your own hands, ladies and gentlemen. To continue with this reply speech, I will be giving 3 clashes failed to be determined by the government side. First, should people trust the police? Ladies and gentlemen, the government side said that trust is a very important thing to maintain peace in every single thing, and trust is the main backbone of every single thing in the world. Without trust, you cannot accomplish anything. And the opposition said that people do not need to trust the police just need to do their own job without people trusting them. And this is very wrong because without trust, you cannot cooperate well with each other. And ladies and gentlemen, even if you cannot fully trust the police, without trust toward the police, you cannot obey their orders. And they will not give you what you want in the long run, which is the peace that you requested. Ladies and gentlemen, the second clash, which is the policy. Even if their policy, we're not sure if it's come late or come early, but we will compare the policy in which policy is better. In our policy from the opposition side, we say that the films and TV shows already only put the good side of the police. But my second speaker already said that in the good side of the police, that it is already realistic. They already have the minority of bad police in the films and TV shows that we have in the status quo. So that is why their entire mechanism of making it a realistic depiction is already same with the government side mechanism. So ladies and gentlemen, they are actually agreeing to this status quo, which is already happening, and the opposition side would like to stay with the status quo. Ladies and gentlemen, the third clash is the benefit to the majority. What the opposition side is trying to do is we are trying to fix the status quo where people disbelieve, where people fear in the police. We are trying to instill back the trust in order for people, the citizens, to trust the police. We believe that this will benefit the citizens in many, many ways when they actually trust the police. But what the opposition is trying to tell everyone is that police are bad, police are not responsible, and police are useless. Thus, you should not go to the police when you have any problems. And this is what the government is trying to create in their world, ladies and gentlemen. Because we want all of these clashes, we want today's debate. Very proud to oppose. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your reply speech. The government may include the reply speech now.
Excuse me, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, so good evening, I bid once again to all the members of the floor. So I am going to be delivering the reply speech, and what I'm going to be doing is in this reply speech is I'm going to be pointing out what the flaws of the government side, what the flaws of the opposition side is, and I'm going to point out and show us what we have brought to the debate and why we have won this debate today. Okay, so there are many problems in the opposition's case that I want to address here. Firstly, okay, we have brought to you about the topic of over-glorification, about how when we over-glorify, when we only show in a positive light, people will not know. People will not know the bad side. And we have said again and again, why it is bad? Because it doesn't show the real picture. It can cause harms to people. It can, when we don't show, when it is over-glorified, people don't know the true state. And when people do not know the true state, what will happen is that people will not be prepared for this, for what will happen. Okay, I've said that in my previous speech, but it seems that they have not been listening. Okay, so now in the topic of over-glorification, they never actually acknowledge the harms of it. They kept just saying, okay, it's good. They failed to acknowledge why it's actually bad. Okay, they keep on saying we show them in a good light, and people will follow, and everything will be fine and dandy. We think that this is not the case. We think that they are trying to live in a utopia. Okay, so what do I mean by utopia? It's basically they think that, okay, when we show the police all in a very nice light, very good light, they say that, okay, the police will suddenly just go, okay, they will try to live up to the movie standards. They will try to live up to how the police in the movies are depicted. We say that this is very a big assumption here, because we think that no matter what, we think that there will always still be lots of cases where some police are not. Some police actually do misconducts, and not like they don't perfectly do the job. Sometimes there are misconducts, as you said. Okay. Next problem is that they failed to acknowledge. They kept on saying that the George Floyd. They kept on playing it down that the George Floyd incident was actually just a misconduct. It's nothing wrong. Then they continue on to say that it's bad to depict the whole police force badly because of this one thing. We think that you should not just write it off as something insignificant. It is precisely why you write it off as a misconduct, as something very small, that why these things might happen again. Because you do not address them. You just play it down. You say it's nothing. It will not happen again. But you do not give the police an incentive to not do it again. You just see, and in this case, it shows that you do not actually really care about the safety of the people. You do not care about how they are going to be treated by the police. And we think that this actually, moving to my next point, this actually shows that we actually provide a safer world in our side and government side. Okay, so in the world of government and in the world of opposition, what will it look like? Okay, in the world of government, what will happen is that people will know what are the problems with police, what kind of misconducts they do when we show them in these movies. But then when it happens to them, when bribery happens, when they are mistreated by the police, at least they will know that it is wrong, and they will have the fight. They will know that they have the right to fight for themselves. But in the opposition side, they as they've been going on and on is trust. So what happens when they fully trust? What happens when they do this? It's like police propaganda, saying police are never wrong when we just show them in a good light. We think that what happens, it will be detrimental, because as I said before, this is the cause of all these cases happening in the first place. And you said that, okay, when the police points a gun, we will know that it's a bad thing, because if we think logically. But we think that this is not the case, because what you are advocating for is actually 100% trust in the police, because that's all you're seeking. You do not want the people to question the problems of the police. So, and you say that you go on to say that the false sense of security is bad. We think that we show to you we showed to you with the false sense of security. With the false sense of security, at least they know what problems the police might have. Whereas on your side, you would have complete trust in the police, and then what will happen is that when they point a gun at you and shoot, you just trust in them because that is what you are trying to advocate for, and that is something you do not understand in this debate today. And one last problem I have to point out is basically in the reply speech, suddenly the replier suddenly added on to the status quo randomly. We think that this is not a good thing, as how they said that bringing up in the second speaker the mechanism or whatever is not fair. We think that bringing up new substantive in the reply speech is also unfair. Thank you very much.
All right, thank